We need good quality roofing contractors in Texas.
But who's gonna make him accountable if there's no licensing, if there's no permit on that roof? Nobody's gonna make that builder accountable if he, like, I've seen it here in Minneapolis. I've been covering that story actually for many years. Texas is like a different country.
Governor Abbott told us a couple of years ago that more regulation is imminent. Texas isn't going to be able to stay in this state forever because of the influx and the growth that's going on.
So getting a license isn't about that. It's about protecting the consumer. It's about protecting the people and the items and the articles that are underneath the roof.
And plus, it was too prohibitory. The 10-year requirement in business is nothing that we as an organization would ever support. If the attorney gets anything from the roofer or handles it, they get a percentage of that. The homeowner doesn't win.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We have Sarha and Jeanne. Do I say your name right, Jeanne?
No, it's Jeannie.
Jeannie. So bad. Jeannie and Sarha. So last few weeks, we have little controversy coming out of Texas. A lot of questions and talks about the licensing bill in Texas. I've been covering that story actually for many years. Texas is like a different country. A lot of people want to be independent country, and everything you guys do there is a little bit different. So I've been tagged by many people to let you share your side of the story. So I have a couple questions for you guys. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, thank you.
So my first question is, most states require a license. Why not Texas?
In a state of deregulation. They even attempted a few sessions back to abolish our plumber's license. But with the rate of growth, there are more and more people moving to Texas and a ton of building, a lot of businesses moving in. So Governor Abbott told us a couple of years ago that more regulation is imminent. Texas isn't going to be able to stay in this state forever because of the influx and the growth that's going on. But yeah, we've been fighting for a Texas roofing license for many decades as an association, and it's been very hard to do it. And I mean, Dmitry, they can do anything. They don't have to have insurance. There's no accountability whatsoever. So I can't blame them for not wanting government in their business. Those people who oppose it, I'm speaking of.
So in your opinion, how does no licensing affect the industry right now, and especially contractors? Do you feel like we have too many players, quality of work? Like what it leads to?
Well, I don't feel there's too many players at all. I mean, there are plenty of roofs in Texas. We're one of the largest states, and we're growing every moment. So it's wonderful, and new business is wonderful, and that's what we want for our economy is new business. So getting a license isn't about that. It's about protecting the consumer. It's about protecting the people and the items and the articles that are underneath the roof. Because let's face it, your flooring's not going to be the first thing damaged when the roof leaks. It's going to be your articles that are within. It's going to be your house, your furniture, your bedroom sets, your office areas, your computers, your equipment, everything you need to do business if it's a commercial roof, and everything you need to be a home if it's a residential roof. So that's why licensing is important, but it's not about refraining from us growing or creating more businesses. We need good quality roofing contractors in Texas.
So how does no licensing affect consumers right now?
Well, one thing, let me tell you. So a guy knocks on your door, tells let's say a single fixed income woman at home alone, I can fix your roof for free, sign this contract right here. She gets the initial check and gives him, let's call it $15,000, and he ghosts her. Never returns, never comes back. She tries to find them. They don't answer the phone, return calls. That consumer can't even file a police report. You would think it could be considered theft of monies. But the local police department won't even take a report in that instance. It's a civil matter. That homeowner has to go hire an attorney. which, that costs a lot of money, as you are aware. If the attorney gets anything from the roofer or handles it, they get a percentage of that. The homeowner doesn't win. And today there's zero tracking of how often that happens or other similar circumstances. That's probably a worst case, but there's no tracking of that. No one is keeping up with that because, like I said, the local police department won't even take a police report from them.
Well, let's talk about the bill. So my first question is, there's a few versions of it. There are two versions of a bill in Texas that caused a lot of confusion this spring. What was wrong with the first version?
The first version was never intended to be introduced again. That is an older bill. It's a previous bill. As the president of the association, it's not a bill that we would have ever brought forth because that wasn't the bill that we were even ever talking about. And so, go ahead, Sarah. I think you're unfrozen now.
Yeah, and plus it was too prohibitory. The 10-year requirement in business is nothing that we as an organization would ever support. And there were a few other things in there. Yes, it was a bill that had been resurrected from many, many, many years ago, well before my time. I'm not sure who drafted that, to be honest with you. But imagine RCAT's surprise. No one has been pushing for licensure for roofers for 30 years, and suddenly there's a new roofing license bill filed. And Representative Curry, as a freshman legislator, did not know of our current efforts and didn't know of our past historical efforts either. So they filed a bill and, he kind of walked in blind. He didn't know the history and the story. So our organizations met and quickly decided that first version of the bill needed to be discarded in favor of the one that RCAT was working on. The first bill was just way too prohibitive, and we just wouldn't support it.
So how's the final version better than original? What changed? What changes there?
So there's no barrier to entry on the revised version of the bill. There's no time in business required. You can open a business and file for your license immediately. So that's the biggest change. Also, the way the advisory council was structured was also changed. The criminal penalties were taken away in favor of civil penalties. And it created for consumers in the law that contractors had to provide a written contract with their license number, where to report an issue to, and if there were anything that needed to be reported in case anything went wrong, and then also created a statewide database so that we can begin tracking some of these things that are going on. Plus, it gives consumers a spot to go actually look. These people are licensed with the state. They provided their proof of insurance. They paid their fee. They're registered with the Secretary of State. They're a legitimate business.
So what would it take to get a license under the final version? Is there a test? Is there so no years in business? And is this the one that was recently introduced, or is that still old version?
No. There was only two. The introduced version during the House committee hearing, the public hearing, Representative Curry laid out the substitute version. That's the one I'm speaking of. No, there is no testing requirements involved with that license either. It's meet the minimal requirements, filed or established business with your county or state, the Secretary of State, provide your proof of insurance, pay the fee, and register, and then renew your license every 2 years is basically the gist.
Where does the talk about 10 years in business coming from then? Is it from first version?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the first version. And once again, that's too prohibitory. We would never ever require that because, that would keep anybody who's just starting a business from getting in. I think maybe the intent of it was back then was maybe a apprenticeship similar to like the electricians and the plumbers go through. So based on certain number of years of experience, then you could have your full license or be the license holder. But once again, I don't really know. I wasn't involved in the creation of that bill. So I'm kind of assuming based on structure.
When was that created and why we've been talking about it last few months? Because how old is that?
So it was filed February 25th and discarded within the first week or so of March. Now, that bill was publicly available on the Texas legislature online. So there's some confusion there. And it did not get assigned to the committee until March the 21st. And then it did not get assigned for a public hearing until April 15th. So at the April 15th hearing, Representative Curry laid out and testified on the substitute bill, and the committee then voted on that. So that introduced bill has been on their website since February 25th upon filing. And the revised version of the bill, which if you look at the website now, you can track through that, wasn't there until the April 15th hearing. And so that really caused a lot of confusion. I learned a lot through this process. That had never happened before, that another bill had been filed.
So the 10-year version was is a new bill was available like online, like the 10-year requirement one?
Yeah, so when it's filed with the Texas legislature,
After April 15.
Yeah, it's assigned a bill number and then it's available and tracking on a public website. And it's still there to this day, but there's two versions. You have the introduced and then you have the committee version, which tracks through all the way through the hearing. So yes, it did cause some confusion. I was informed incorrectly that the old bill would actually be replaced by the new one at the hearing, but that was incorrect information. Like I said, it was kind of a learning curve for us too. No one had ever attempted to file a licensing bill along with us before.
Got it. How much would a license cost now?
So TDLR would set that rate. It's not specified in this bill. There's several loose ends not specified in the bill that allows the agency, TDLR, to set, because if you specified a fee or an amount for general liability insurance in the bill, to change it later, you'd have to go back through the legislature and change it again if it needed updating. So those rules weren't specified. My best guesstimates, because this bill did not get all the way through, would be around $500 every 2 years.
I see. Another question that was raised and controversial is, why was it limited to re-roofing only? Doesn't that give advantage to the new construction? Like there's also discrepancy between re-roofing and new construction.
That's a great question. Jeanne, you field this.
I'm happy to answer that. And Dmitry, start that opening question again. How did you phrase that question?
Why was it limited to re-roofing only?
What was it limited to re-roofing only? So, and to me, this is such a no-brainer question. I'm surprised that there's ever been any controversy about it. Re-roofing is totally separate from new construction. I'm a commercial roofer. I'm a general contractor who specializes in commercial roofing and waterproofing.
Mhm.
So I don't do a lot of residential. We have some friends and family type things that we might do on occasion, but for the most part, I stay in my lane with commercial roofing. I stay in my lane and try to not do any new construction. And I'll tell you why, because it is completely different. The moment you do new construction, it is usually handled by a general contractor. The general contractor is under strict regulations. Automatically, they have to go down and they have to apply for a permit. They have to get building permits. They have to get plumbing permits. They have to get electrical permits, mechanical permits, HVAC permits. They have to get gas permits, all of this. In addition, they have to follow building codes. They have to make sure that they're following all the international building codes correctly. And then the international building codes according to each city that they're within. In addition to that, when you're roofing under new construction, you are under the regulations and the plans of what the architecture and the engineer have put forward to you to complete. And not only are you under those regulations, just one time, here are the plans, give me your estimate, but throughout the course of the project, you have people coming out to take a look at the roof at every phase. And it's not just the general contractor that's coming out. It's the electrician, it's the plumber, it's the engineer, it's the mechanical people, the HVAC people. And anybody that's doing anything on that roof is with you working side by side. And guess what's great about that? They're all licensed. Every one of them is already licensed. So this bill was designed for consumer protection, consumers are already protected under new construction because of all the licensing that's already required if you're a roofer doing new construction. Does that make
Plus,
sense?
yeah, and to add to that, that's great. But also, we have to talk about where the greatest risk to consumers is, Dimitri, in Texas, right? You're at greater risk if you are replacing your roof from being defrauded by a nefarious contractor than you are new construction. I'm not saying that every roofer out there doing new construction does a perfect job and shouldn't require a license. In a perfect world, we would love for this to cover all roofing. I can't remember exactly. I apologize. It was either 13 or 15, the last licensing bill we attempted with new construction. It got tied up in draft after draft after draft after draft. They wasted time with all of these many exclusions. Apparently, there's a huge manufactured home, mobile homes, prefabbed homes are manufactured in Texas, so it affects them as well. But really, the truth is it's more danger to the consumer in residential and commercial re-roofing versus new construction. And like I said, a perfect world, we would love for it to be included. The Home Builders Association has a very powerful lobby. We've attempted over the years to work with them. They have fought it and beat it down. So we're trying to get the next best thing. Something's better than nothing.
Okay, so you go against bigger player, bigger machine, and they push back. Uh, I want to ask my audience, guys, comment below if you think that re-roofing residential and commercial new construction should be the same. And from the outside looking in, I'll tell you this, because I've traveled to over 200 companies in the past 3-4 years. I've been in Florida, I've been in California, and I've been in Texas a lot. And I can tell you, the quality of new construction roofs in Texas, horrible. I see a lot of 3 tabs. I was with Apex Roofing just recently, and they showed me neighborhoods, and I asked them, how is this possible that these 3 tabs are this quality? And the roofers telling me, well, because builders are getting away with it, they can install. So Jeanne, I don't agree with you about the building codes, because if there's no license, if there's no permitting, if there's no inspector who pushes back, the quality will be absolute minimum. And then every roofer knows that your spec house have the worst roof possible. And I would also argue that it's not helping consumer, because the builder gives them 1 year warranty. For 1 year, the roof is not going to leak. But then in the year 3, that poor homeowner will have leaks and will have to hire a roofer to re-roof it, because the builder got away with the lowest quality possible. So I am pushing back a little bit. I hear the argument, and I thank you so much for
I
explaining.
argue with you that what you're talking about is the quality of a product, and that's an issue to be taken up with the manufacturer of that product. Eventually, we'll have to get to a point where insurance companies allow, especially in a state with hailstorms like us, a class 4 shingle on residential roofs, because we are hit with hail all the time. And so on a new construction, that is up to the general contractor to decide what the material and quality is. I mean, you talk about the quality of a shingle. Well, let's talk about the quality of a sheetrock.
But who's gonna make him accountable if there's no licensing, if there's no permit on that roof? Nobody's gonna make that builder accountable. If he, like, I've seen it here in Minneapolis, so they can pick good product, quality product. If they don't install it properly, if there's no city inspector, if there's no permit to be closed, if there's nobody's checking that roof, and passing it on, who's going to make that accountable? That roofer.
Up to the general contractor to check that roof. The general contractor is the one responsible for the roof.
And he's getting away with it because there's no permit, there's no license. He's getting, so he can get away with a murder right now.
Roofing license isn't going to protect that.
Oh yes,
It's
it will.
gonna be the general
Yes,
contractor that's behind that.
yes, it will. Well, if the general contractor pulls the permit on a roof and inspector comes out and say, I'm not passing it, he's making builder accountable. Right now, without that piece, that builder will install whatever he wants to install, however he wants to install it, because there is no license, there is no permit.
Dmitry, right now, that general contractor, when he pulls the permit and sees the roofer didn't do it correctly to his specifications, he has the ability, because he's the one that contacted that roofer, to get back to that roofer. They've got that relationship. That's then up to him, because he's got that relationship with him.
But he's not a roofer. He does not know the details. If that roofer cut corner somewhere, and no, it's just.
I understand the point you're attempting to make. However, the problem is, just like when I hire somebody, it's up to me to train them when they go out to the roof. So I'm the one held accountable for how my crew installs a roof. Because in that case, I would be considered a general contractor. So in new construction, it's that general contractor that hires that roofer that's therefore required to make sure that these things are done properly. It's up to the engineer to make sure the substrate
So
of the roof is
the
correct.
question is, so the general contractor is not an electrician. That's why electrician has his own permit, and he's right. So if you're correct, that general contractor should make electrician, plumber, everybody else accountable. And if electrician does something, stupid, and someone dies, then it's on GC. No, it's not. Like that's why we
Who
have.
do you think GC is going to go back to? He's going to go back to the electrician. But what I'm hearing is you actually support licensing, and that part I love.
Yeah.
We're just trying to
And also permitting, also permits, and also we need to make people
there
accountable.
are permits in Texas.
Yes, and we know it's truly the wild, wild west. Honestly, and let me kind of give it from the flip side of this too. I know a lot of roofers. I don't know them all, but I know none that do only new construction. Only. Storm pops up in your area, you're going to be doing some re-roofing. You're doing some friends and families. You're re-roofing too. And you're going to need a license for that. So in theory, it really scoops up most of them. The GC that's got a crew that he uses to slap on roofs, obviously it's not going to apply there. But like I said, Dmitry, in a perfect world, we would love for it to cover all roofing in Texas, examinations be required, some real teeth in it. But to get something done, we've had to create the lowest barrier of entry possible so that we are not discriminating against any size business, any ethnic group. We're not trying to keep Hispanics out. What the most organized, biggest opposition to a licensure in Texas is the Hispanic Contractors Association. Great people, love them all over there. We visit and chat when we see each other every 2 years, but they are completely against it. So it's going to be a long, hard battle, but we're going to have to start with the absolute bare minimal to get something passed in Texas. And we're going to have to let TDLR set some common sense rules that doesn't overburden contractors in business today and doesn't create a barrier of entry for anyone else. So I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect version of it. I haven't seen a perfect bill yet. But we're going to keep plugging away and trying, because the majority of our membership, which is over 1,000 with all of our organizations combined, majority of them want regulation by the state. Not only is it good for consumers, but these good business owners that are doing the right thing in Texas, when a storm pops up and there's 400 brand new roofers in your neighborhood that are only there for a temporary period of time, it hurts the consumer trust and the good businesses out there in Texas to not have a license. So it's why we support it.
Love it. I have 4 quick questions you can ask as quick as possible or take as long as you want. But I do want to address some critics here.
Sure.
Some people argued this bill was meant to help insurance companies. Is that true? Why would someone make that accusation?
I am not sure where somebody would make that accusation or get that from, honestly. The insurance lobby was not involved at all in the creation of the substitute bill. They were not consulted. They were not in meetings. Do they support it? Sure. There are roofers in Texas making a living committing insurance fraud. Why wouldn't they support it? But they have not funded this, and they have not given any input. That's completely untrue.
Awesome. Thanks for clarifying. Some say it hurts small contractors and minority groups like undocumented workers. What's your response to that? I think you already touched on minority, and I like it, but expand on it a little more.
Right. So this is the least barrier of entry. If you have an established business, you can file for a license. It's going to cost you a fee, like I said, guessing about $500 every 2 years, and you're going to be required to carry insurance. I get it. Carrying insurance is expensive, but also not carrying it can be very expensive, and you're one mistake from bankruptcy. So that's the only impact I see to small businesses or any minority group is the requirement to pay a fee and to purchase general liability insurance.
Jeannie, anything to add?
No,
Got it.
I think people are mistaken that every employee would have to be licensed, and that's not what this is. This is the owner of the company has to be licensed.
Got it. Why do some roofers still think licensing is a trap, in your opinion?
Well, they have to be told what to do. They're being given a rule book by the state of Texas and being told what to do. So when you have been able to just operate willy-nilly and now you're being given a playbook, it's perfectly understandable why people want to push back and say no regulation over the industry.
So my another question I have: did anybody actually read the bill before trashing it? Do you feel like people just reading headlines and not like, I deal with it on social media a lot. Like I'll
Right.
make a post and people will read just the title and quick to comment. I'm like, if you actually watch it and read the post, not the title, they feel like that's actually also took place here, that they did not dive deep enough to read it.
So I want to tell you something. This is my seventh session down there, so I know all the things. But normally at a hearing, you have as many roofers as you can pack into this place in one day to come sign in support of the bill. But the reality is that committee is going to pick and choose who they hear, right? And they're going to pick two or three, and you got 100 people, let's be objective, 100 people standing around for 10, 12 hours waiting on this hearing to start. So it was really amazing this year because this is such a contentious issue. The House committee opened up an online link to where you could submit your comments in favor or against the bill. So we sent this out to 12,000 contacts. And of those, a little over 450 commented on it. Hey, I don't have to be at the Capitol today and take time away from my business. I can actually do this online. So 400, little over 450 commented, 392 in favor, 55 opposed, and 8 that weren't specific. But the reason I bring that up is 12,000 contacts were given the ability to reach out to this committee reviewing the law, and a little over 450 did it. So, in answer to your question in a long roundabout way, is I think a lot of people don't pay attention. They don't understand how, number one, the government works and how you get a law passed. And no, they don't really read it. They're more of, I don't have time for this. I can't read 8 or 9 pages. I'll just deal with it when it gets here. So that's kind of sad and unfortunate.
Do we have a plan B in place if licensing keep failing? And
Well, we have Plan B in place. RCAT has a voluntary licensing program today. It is very legal. I worked with TDL and our enforcement attorneys on establishing the standards and tracking and the rules. We've been sued for the right to call it a license and won that clear to the Texas Supreme Court. So you have to be in business 2 years, carry general liability insurance. You have to pass an examination for residential, commercial, plus a business and safety. You have to have 8 hours of continuing education every year, and you have to go back through that full check every year, background business credit check. And so our voluntary program is Plan B, and we'll maintain that and keep that until the state and takes over and issues a law for licensure, and then we'll let them have it.
love it. I have last 5 questions and we will be done. These are the most
Uh-oh.
these are the most interesting questions in my opinion. Is Texas, in your opinion, the easiest place in America to scam a homeowner as a roofer?
100%.
You think so? Okay. Who is really afraid of roofer licensing? Bad contractors, lobbyists, or lazy politicians?
Bad contractors.
Bad contractors afraid of it? Why can you get your nails done by a licensed pro in Texas, but not your roof?
That's a really good question, and it's absolutely ridiculous, and I think Texas residents deserve a better standard.
So I'm surprised how many places have licenses. You go to nail salons and I do sauna places like, in Texas
Yeah.
too. You come in and there's occupancy and like some kind of registrations, right? But not on the roof, which is crazy. What other job lets you touch six figures of someone's property with zero qualifications? Because also, what's crazy about Texas, in my opinion, is average check is so big, average roof is so big. I'm an underlayment business now, and people in Texas, roofers in Texas, use most rolls of underlayment because the roofs are just so big. Like you have cities up north with you go to Boston and New Jersey, tiny little houses. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. One of the people fighting for licensing is Representative Curry. He said his own family members scammed homeowners out of roofing deposits. What more proof does Texas need to pass this law? So are you going to keep fighting it? What's the next step here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Here in about 18 months, we'll start gearing up for the next session. We always invite any other organization, anyone opposed, or anybody who wants to have input on what the bill should say. We come together, we talk. There are those regulars who will be opposed to zero any regulation always, and that's fine. We agreed to disagree a long time ago. If you're not willing to have something, if nothing's your only option, then we know what that is. But we encourage anyone out there, if you've got some ideas or some thoughts, contact our office. You can always visit with our lobbying team as well. But we'll start planning this towards October next year, what we're going to do in the next session. But we will definitely be back and we will continue the fight for licensed roofing contractors in Texas.
How can someone support you, and what kind of support are you looking for, like among roofers, or like how can roofers help you?
Well, I think right now I would say, and Sarah add to this, but for starters, join RCAT. Join RCAT to be a part of it. Make sure you're on our email list. Make sure you're following our website. Demetra, I'd encourage your audience to go online, look at the RCAT. I think it's on our website as well, but it's on every social media platform. But read the letter from the president there, and it gives you all the links that you need to read this bill, to see the progress of it, to see what happened with it, to see what it says and what it doesn't say. You have a complete bill history there. All the links are there. But get informed, get knowledgeable, so you can get on board with us, or if there's something that we missed or we didn't see, help us improve it. Help us make it better. Let's work together instead of against each other all the time.
Love it. I got a gift yesterday. I came to the office. It was a box here. I didn't want to keep it controversial, but I want to give you opportunity to answer. So someone sent me this hat. Make Texas country again. I love hats. Like, I collect them.
That's awesome.
And, obviously last week, I've been tagged so many times after I interviewed Chris. He used very harsh words against RCAT. And I think it's only fair to give you opportunity. I don't have any questions. I don't want to go back and forth. I just want to give you opportunity to answer to that interview. Maybe your message to people who support Chris, or because I've seen so many comments and I've seen so many heat in it, like in DMs and stuff. Can you publicly reply to that interview? I know it's misleading in your opinion, and I just wanted to give you opportunity to answer.
Sure. And thank you for that. And, RCAT as a whole, and coming from me personally, we wish, Chris Crutcher nothing but the best. And, if you're going to work on some licensure for the next session, I hope to hear from you so that we can work together on that. But, the message for the rest of the world out there is, I really felt like that interview was full of a lot of misconceptions, and we wanted an opportunity to kind of set the record straight. Read the bill and read the bill summary. I mean, there's absolutely nothing radical, monopolistic, discriminatory about this law at all. And I think if you do a little homework, you'll see that, and you can see through someone's personal agenda and or issues with the law as it was written, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, Chris, I hope we hear from you in 2 years when we're right back at the Capitol.
You know,
Awesome.
to
Go
add
ahead.
to that, my mother always told me that if you have to put another person down to lift yourself up, you were never really standing straight in the first place. So his efforts and attempts to put me down, not only do I find that they've been personally slanderous and false, but very misleading. And I guess Chris needs to come out and say hello to me as a third generation roofer and talk to my dad. And he obviously has some personal issues that he maybe like to talk about.
You know what? I love roofing industry. There's no lack of drama. We'll always have something. You know, in every city. I just came from Atlanta, and they're like roofers. We know drama. We have drama. I think it keeps us in check sometimes. When I have a conflict with someone, it makes me, look at the mirror and ask myself, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I did give someone opportunity. Maybe some of the stuff that they're saying is true. That's why I personally like the conflict, because it keeps me in check, and I don't want to give anyone opportunity, for anything. But anyway,
Give him a platform.
yes.
Dimitri,
Lifting one another up.
exactly. Help lift one each other up. And honestly, I wish it had happened much sooner in the process, because the attention it brought, to the legislation, the number of calls I received, and the interest, and everything was great. I loved the social media attention it finally got this year. So, like I said, we'll be back in 2 years, and I hope you help us get the message out again.
We'll be here. We're not going anywhere, and we'll be keeping our eye on licensing in Texas. I live in Minneapolis. I love our regulations here. I remember 2013, I passed the test and I pulled the permits. I think it's a good thing. I don't like what's happening, in some states. I like California is a little bit crazy, but rules are there to follow, and if consumers protected, that's the golden rule here. Thank you guys so much for this, and guys, comment below what you think about the story, and I'll see you in the next video.